Over 300 junior officers from 37 divisions and 7 area commands are participating in the 2-day retreat themed Capacity Building and Empowerment, Keys to Excellence in Security Service Delivery. Chidimmi Kemede, Aneke TV.
From the tiniest cells to the farthest galaxies, life holds secrets we are only beginning to uncover. Why are we here? What connects us all? What unseen forces shape our destiny? Join Professor Jude Udenta as he explores the wonders, the questions, and the revelations that define existence. Mysteries of life, where every answer sparks a new discovery. Watch now on Aneke TV every Monday.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on the Week in Retrospect. I am still Uche Osai.
Yes, and I'm Deborah Wakoba, your serving voice on the Week in Retrospect today.
All right, on the Week in Retrospect, we'll set the ball rolling with our Person of the Month recognition.
Yes, and our Person of the Month of November is Most Reverend Barrister Christopher N. Ede. And Most Reverend Barrister Christopher N. Ede stands as a distinguished leader and transformative figure at the helm of the Enugu Archdiocese of the Methodist Church, Nigeria. His great exemplary leadership extends beyond spiritual guidance into dynamic national social reform, earning him the esteemed recognition as Personality of the Month for November 2025 by Aneke TV's The Week in Retrospect. As a committed mentor and advocate, Archbishop Ede champions youth development, nurturing Nigerians' young people as the nation's future leaders with unwavering dedication. He is also a tireless crusader for social justice, persistently advocating ethical governance, transparency, and equitable treatment for all Nigerians. A fearless reformer, His Grace has led impactful campaigns against harmful cultural practices, including the eradication of exploitative traditions such as Ezinwai and Ezinwoke, as well as organized fraud and illicit organ harvesting, demonstrating courageous leadership that intertwines ethical standards with cultural renewal. The recognition not only honors Archbishop Ede's dedication, but also reinforces his influential role in shaping a more just and ethical Nigerian society. So like we said, today's Persons of the Month in the Week in Retrospect is Most Reverend Barrister Christopher N. Ede. Congratulations, Most Reverend, for being our Person of the Month in the Week in Retrospect. Now today we'll be taking a look at our headlines throughout the week, starting from the headline on Monday. Coming from the Nation headline that says, airstrikes kill terrorists in Bono Pound hideout in Castina, Kwara. And also on the Punch line, it says, troops pound terror bases in key states. And in the Vanguard headline, it reads, NAF strikes kill terrorist bandits in Bono, Kwara, Castina, and others. And lastly, in the Guardian headline says, 33 years later, hope dims for safer pipeline supplies of jets A1 to airports.
All right, talking about these headlines, we've seen that given that the Nigerian government and the government of the United States of America have been on a diplomatic front negotiating on how to get Nigeria out of the country of particular concern designation by President Donald Trump. However, the government of America has said if Nigeria fails to do anything concerning the killing of Christians in Nigeria, talking about the insecurity in Nigeria, that they will be forced to put boots on the ground. And given that ultimatum, the Nigerian government has increased action against the insurgents. And there we are seeing here that the insurgents are being pounded by the Air Force, and that is quite commendable of our government to begin to, increase the kinetic approach in tackling the insecurities in Nigeria. We didn't need to have waited for the government of the United States to make us aware for us to begin to fight insurgents. We keep on saying that in Nigeria, the insecurity has become the bane of the day. And then it took the President Donald Trump to say something about that for us to now realize that we need to increase action in this regard. Yes. Now, first of all, the fact remains that irrespective of the fact that there has been argument about the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, that Christians are being killed in Nigeria, speaking to Christian genocide in Nigeria, there has been back and forth arguments, some in favor, some against. However, whichever divide of this spectrum that you find yourself, the basic thing here is that, are people being killed in Nigeria? The answer is yes. People are being killed in Nigeria. And if people are being killed in Nigeria, then it behoves on the government to see to the security of life and property, which is the number one fundamental work of every government in the world, to secure the citizens, secure life and property. And if you are failing in this regard, then there's no need for a government. You do not have a government in place. So kudos to the Nigerian Air Force, kudos to the Nigerian Army for beginning to increase the kinetic approach to this engagement with the bandits, who have seen to it that Nigerians no longer go to bed with their eyes closed. You can tell me, before people travel in this country now, I keep saying it, they will go to the church, pay for olive oil, do fasting and praying for 3 days just to embark on a very short journey. Yeah. That's what Nigeria has become. It's in this nation that you see people went to bed hoping that the next day they will get up and go about their normal daily activities, only for them to be, to be killed in their sleep, only for that life to be cut short. That can only happen in this nation, and it's quite unfortunate. And this time around, we can't overemphasize. Move through Enugu, for example, to the Middle Belt, go to Benue here. You have Nigerians living in ID camp in a country that is not at war. And it had to take the United States of America, I bet wrong or right, to make us realize about the killings in Nigeria. And what we've said is that, yes, people are being killed. Are they Christians? Perhaps, yes, Christians are being killed. Are Muslims being killed as well? The answer is yes. Are non-believers being killed? The answer is equally yes. So the bottom line, like I do always say, is that human life is sacrosanct and should be preserved. We need not wait until we are designated a country of particular concern, or being, given the image of a country where Christians are not free to practice their religion. No. The first primary duty of government is secure life and property, and they should see to it that, yes, these bandits are decimated, not just in rhetorics, but let it be seen, let it be felt across the nooks and crannies of Nigeria that life is safe in Nigeria. And until that time, then our engagement with the outside world will begin to bear fruit. But in as long as we continue to see that lives are wasted in Nigeria, then that designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern will continue to hold water. In as much as I commend the government for wanting to take a diplomatic approach which will yield better results, they should, yes, increase that approach. Let the military get full support that they need to pound this insurgent from Maiduguri through Zamfara, to Enugu, to Bayelsa. Wherever there is crisis, insecurity in Nigeria, let it be dealt with, and be dealt with seen to be dealt with. Nigerians have no business being in ID camp when we are not at war. Our engagement with our allies, the United States of America, is to see how they will support us like they've done in the past. You remember that America supplies us with Tucano jets and other equipments that we've been using all this while. They sell arms to us. That should be increased. And then let it be seen to be realized. Not a situation where before even the Nigerian soldiers get to the bandits, you will see that they've gotten information and they've relocated. No, all hands should be on deck this time around. Let them be seen to be decimated once and for all. And in doing that, we cannot fight this in isolation. The kinetic approach alone would not work. Why we need the combined armed forces, to be involved in this fact? There is still need that as far as our government is engaging the governments of the United States of America and other of our allies, they should have an engagement with the Sahel states, because you see this, the high level of insecurity situations in Nigeria could be traced to the crisis in the Sahel. And, what they've, over the past, it's been traced to the crisis in Libya in particular, causing proliferation of arms down West Africa. And if that is not sorted out, having a negotiation with the Sahel state, let there be a joint effort to police the desert so that the porous nature of our borders shut up. Then this, arms will not have its way into Nigeria. These insurgents will not, continue to have access into Nigeria. When we've done that negotiation, the next thing is to see that we shore up our borders. Let's police our borders. We know that Nigeria has a lot of borders, but it should be adequately policed. If we were under police in terms of immigration, custom, and police, then this is a nation that has been talking about lack of jobs. What do? Recruitment. Then it opens up an opportunity. When you go to the United States, we'll have what we call border patrol. Do you understand? Yeah. Then we can have border patrol. That's an opportunity to recruit young men into the force, let there be employment so that our borders will be adequately policed, so that people don't just walk in and out of Nigeria as if it's a no man's land. No, that should be the approach that we'll use. And when you've secured the border, then lead an onslaught against these insurgents. Go to them in their hideouts. Go to where they are. I remember the governor of Zamfara telling us that they know where these people are, that they see them, they know where they are, they know how they move. If they have this information, then take advantage of that information, begin to decimate them. Because when you've closed the border, they won't have nowhere to go to. They won't have nowhere to run to. Then deal with them decisively, because we've seen that the carrot and kinetic approach doesn't work again. So let's jettison the carrot approach, because we've romanced these daredevils enough. You've seen pictures, videos where some insurgents are with some officials of Nigerian government, you understand? So, and that should not be the case. Where we've tried to negotiate, you negotiate with one group, another group resurfaces. No, it's time to tell them that we do not negotiate with terrorists again. We do not negotiate with bandits. Let's begin to, apply total force, total kinetic approach. Decimate them. We have that capacity. We are still talking about the Nigerian military that went to Liberia, restored peace. The ECOMOG soldiers, I know I keep saying that our story, our tale is still being told, our exploits of our military. And we could do that. And in doing that as well, we should see that our military, the soldiers, are well remunerated. Let them take adequate care of their welfare. Because I say this because I always remember the former CDS when he would say that whenever they go to get the camp of these insurgents, the bandits, you see that what they leave behind is foreign currencies. How did they access these currencies when our soldiers don't have access to their welfare? Is nothing to write home about. So who should increase that people should not be enticed to sell information to these people. When you take care of your soldiers, I bet you will see good results. And talking about taking care of soldiers, yes, let there be insurance for the soldiers so that they will know that if anything should happen to them in the battlefront, that their family will be adequately taken care of. That's what is ought to be done. And with that measure, you begin to see good results. We can't overemphasize the fact that we'll begin to speak about state policing. And I keep advocating that if we see that state policing is not feasible or is going to take a longer route and time for that to happen, then why not about incorporating the community vigilantes? These are people who know their terrain very well. When you combine them into a joint task force, you begin to see better results. Because as I'm speaking to you, it's not just in the north, because when we talk about insecurity, the bandits and all that, do not forget that there is kidnapping down southeast. What are we doing about it? So that's why I keep saying that there has to be a holistic approach. Let's combine military and police action. Let's move around the communities, mop up these insurgents. Go with the community chief, go with the indigents. They will give you information. They know who comes in and out of the community. With that, we'll begin to see better results, and our engagement with the outside will begin to yield better results in this instance.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'll be moving over to our next paper, which is coming from Wednesday and beginning from the Daily Trust, that says, "No going back on convention," says PDP. And in the Punch headline, it says, "House shuts down plenary amid tension over budget." And in the Guardian headline, it says, "Ambition, legal battle stop PDP convention, threaten 2027 prospects." And also, on the Vanguard headline, it says, "Diplomatic engagement yielding results, FG."
All right, let's speak to diplomatic engagement yielding the needed results, all right? And, I said this is commendable. It's in line with what I've been saying already. Yes, this is quite commendable that our government realized that we do not need to be exchanging words with the government of the United States or anybody, that the best approach to resolve this impasse is by diplomatic approach with the foreign governments. Talk about the government of the United States of America. And in this regard, I've commended the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of National Orientation and Information for their efforts leading this charge in diplomatic negotiation with our foreign counterparts. In as much as I commend them, I commend this government for this approach, because this is a well thought out approach. This is what will work, rather than the image laundering and the banter that we were throwing before, sending the likes of Bala and Reno Omokri to cheer up our image and all that. That wouldn't have produced the needed result. That wouldn't have worked with Donald Trump. Well, the only solution is this diplomatic approach. And in that regard, I commend them for this approach, because now they say it's beginning to yield results. I hope that it's not just rhetoric, but let that diplomatic approach, be seen to be producing the needed results, which is part of what I was just talking about. The needed result that will be seen when you've assured the international community of the willingness of Nigerian government to engage, to see that people are not being killed in Nigeria. Mark my word, I'm saying people, human life. I'm not speaking to Christians or Muslims. I am talking about the sacrosanct of human life, that the human life is sacred. That's the end point here. It doesn't matter the religion that anybody is affiliated to. The human life is very sacred and should be upheld in that manner and should be protected at all costs. So while we engage with this government diplomatically, Trump has said that if our government fails to show action, then they will have no reason for not putting boots on the ground. And while we negotiate with them and let them know the dynamics, the intricate nature of the Nigerian community, the Nigerian ethnicity and the religious disposition of Nigerians, while we should share up our engagement with these bandits. I keep saying that we can only resolve this issue through diplomatic channel by letting our ally, the United States of America, help us in combating these insurgents. Yes, they know. While I do not agree that they need to put boots on ground, but I believe that they have the intelligence, they have the cyber capacity to obtain information, you understand, on what is happening in the unpoliced areas in Nigeria. With the assistance of drones and all that, if they can help us in terms of equipment, give us more machines, I know that the Nigerian soldiers are capable to to deliver the dividends from that effort. And what should be our negotiation with them be on how to get more assistance to begin to combat these menace in Nigeria. So I give kudos to the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for instituting this diplomatic channel, and we hope that at the end of the day it yields the needed results that, yes, we want to hear. Rather than towing a divisive talking about Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, for the first time I've seen Nigerians, I've seen Christians come out to say no, that people are being killed, not just Christians in this regard. But the bottom line is that human life should be sacred in Nigeria, and that Nigerian government should begin to realize that one of its primary responsibility is to see to the security of life and property of Nigerians. And personally, I will keep emphasizing it, like I always say, until I see the IDPs closed in Nigeria, then and only then will I know that, yes, all approach have what yielded the result that is required. We cannot say that all these approach are bringing results when you still have Nigerians living in IDP camps, when we are not at war with anybody, with no nation. So this issue of insurgents, we should deal with it and deal with it vehemently. And then that reminds me, with all said and done, talk about negotiation and decimation of the bandit. Have we talked about releasing the list of the sponsors of these insurgents? You know, we keep talking about this list, but up to this moment, nobody has heard about this list. And for that, I think that the government should be held responsible. Because until we know the sponsors of these insurgents, then we are not ready to combat it head on. Let us know the source of their funding. And if until you cut the source of their funding, whatever action we do or take may not yield the total result. But kudos to the federal government for the continuous engagement with our allies, the government of the United States. While I begin to speak about our other allies who have come to say that they are backing Nigerians, they are with us, talk about countries like China and other nations that I've heard about. I want the government to realize that America has been our allies over the years, and they shouldn't let themselves be played into that politics of disassociating themselves from the United States. Let Nigeria not be turned as a ground for proxy war like we're witnessing in Ukraine. No, that should not happen. Every of our allies should come together, help us with both the machinery that we need and intelligence and resources so that we can see that this issue is confronted head on. You know, we can't be talking about Boko Haram since how many years now? We are talking about Boko Haram, then they are metamorphosing into ISWAP, and then coming down east, you're seeing kidnappers, and each time we begin to profile or call an ethnic group. No matter the ethnic group that is involved, let us decimate them and see that Nigerians are safe in Nigeria. That should be the bottom line, and we shouldn't wait until the international community begin to give voice to that for us to know what we are ought to do. And while I speak to that equally, I encourage the government led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, let them fasten up and appoint ambassadors for this nation, because they wasted a lot of time in appointing ambassadors. I can tell you categorically that if we had ambassadors appointed as at when due, this whole issue may not escalate to this point. We will have had somebody who will be there to nip these issues on the bud, somebody who will lead charge immediately to negotiate diplomatically with the government of the United States of America. We will not have this image battering that we're experiencing at this moment. And that's my take on that. I encourage the government, but let the right things be done. And what is these right things? Cut the funding of these terrorists, publish the list of the sponsors of these terrorists. I remember that a certain president in one time did tell us that he has some of these members of Boko Haram in his government, but until this they have not seen the list of those sponsors. What is actually the work of our financial intelligence experts? What are they doing? Do they not have the balls to release this list to the public? And until you do that, you will not get the needed results. Yes. Let us engage in diplomacy, but let's be bold enough to confront these challenges by being bold enough to cut off the source of their funding. When we've done that, every other approach would work.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much for that. And also, we'll be taking a short break. When we return, we'll go through the rest of the newspaper.
The Insight with Uche Osai.
Having the political will to confront whatever is the challenges.
Igbo man wrestles with
the tortoise that had a lot of ingenuity, a lot of ideas, and the tireless.
It will take the bold mind of government in power to say, let there be electoral reform, no matter who sorts is God.
I was there. We did everything. All of us came and supported him with our last blood.
In-depth analysis, expert views, real voices, uncover the stories shaping Nigeria today. Deep dive, honest, unfiltered, only on The Insight with Uche Osai on Aneke TV. Join us.
You're still watching The Week in Retrospect on Aneke TV. Now we're taking our paper from Thursday, coming from the Nation headline that says conflicting court orders on convention, PDP faction clash. And also on the Punch headline it says ex-generals fume as FG orders probe. And in the Vanguard headline says Tinubu backs NGE's proposal for media attack relief VAT exemption. And in the Guardian headline says NGE insists on free press as Tinubu urges fairness, pledges recovery. Mr. Uche, I would like to know your thoughts.
Okay, these whole issues in Nigeria and is what commenting on, but let's look at the crisis that you talked about with the military generals beginning to speak forth.
Yeah,
yes, we've been watching that video over time with the impasse of the FCT minister and the young officer in this instance. And then in this case, just for recaps, we'll remember that during the week, we saw an impasse with the FCT minister and some young officers stationed at a plot of land where there were issues. The FCT minister have come out to let us know that the said land in question, you understand, that the soldier or the retired officer doesn't have the papers to that land, and then there's a revocation where they are trying to forcefully develop that land. And then the minister going further to stop that was confronted with soldiers, and that has made the news throughout the week. And then the retired generals and serving army officers, or that's the constituency of where this young officer belongs to, have come out to speak vehemently against the actions of the FCT minister. And in this instance, in where we were watching that video, you understand, you saw the FCT minister, losing his cool, telling the young officer named Yerima that he is a fool, and then the officer gallantly told the minister that I'm not a fool. I'm an officer. I have integrity. Do you understand? And we commend the composure of this young officer for not losing his cool when confronted. In the face of that confrontation, he maintained his cool. He became the bigger brother in that place by not, losing his tempers, and replied calmly and collectedly to the minister by letting the minister know that he's an officer and he's a man under order. And in military parlance, when you are under order, is your last order that you obey to the letter. So in this instance, yes, we cannot fault the young officer for taking the stand he has taken. Now, the minister, why would the minister go to enforce this order himself? There are many avenues available to the minister for him to carry out whatever decision that he, as the governor of the FCT, has made. He could have approached the court, get a court order restraining and stopping these people from developing that plot of land. And if you cannot access the retired naval chief, what do? Go to the defense headquarters. There's a minister of defense, Badru. Call his attention to it, serve him with these orders. They will be able to get the retired naval chief to stop the action. These are the directions you can take. Being a minister of FCT, he has access rather than taking the path of confrontation. And, I keep speaking to the fact that his orders, made a grave error. It was a very grave it was bad judgment to allow the minister to get to that point where issues, see the number of guns that were there. If one of them had lost his cool or control, and then you saw anything could have happened during confrontation, and they failed by securing their
especially when the minister said you can go ahead and kill everybody.
Yes, if you want to kill anybody, but you saw what the soldier replied. The young officer said, no, we're not going to kill anybody. He maintained his ground. And when the minister tried to make calls and saw that these young officers talked to his gun by letting whoever they called, whom we don't know at this moment, telling the person that he is on order and letting the minister know that he is carrying out the order of a three-star general. And when the minister insisted that this person is no longer active, the young man lectured the minister that once a general, you're a general. It doesn't matter. Do you understand? Whether you are out of service or not, you're a general, And this is a three-star general. So in this instance, like every other, the army generals that have spoken, I cannot fault this young man because he is a man under order. Now, what is left to be said is that the federal government said they are instituting a probe. Now, let's let that probe be carried out, but let it be carried out fair enough. Do you understand? Let it be an unbiased probe to bring out every issue to bear. Now, we're talking about parcel of lands, and the minister is in charge. If the minister has seen that this individual doesn't have the requisite papers that he needs to take possession of that land, there are avenues for him to retrieve that without confronting the young soldier. When the young soldier has informed you that he is another, the minister, a former governor, should know, he should be aware that this young man represents the authority of the commander-in-chief of the Federal Armed Forces. And this is what the retired generals and serving officers are saying, that he shouldn't have insulted the officer for the mere fact that he has seen the man on his uniform, which is a symbol of this government, of this republic, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The minister is the first to have respected that symbol. It's just like when you see the Nigerian flag. You can't step on Nigerian flag. You can't step on Nigerian coat of arms. These are symbols. These are national symbols that we all respect. So what the minister has done, like the generals are beginning to say, is that he has disrespected their commander-in-chief. Why do we make the president of the republic the commander-in-chief of the armed forces? By that authority, he is able to give orders to the armed forces. We know that the military rule is such that you cannot take orders from anybody. There is a chain of command, and by making the president the commander-in-chief, gives him the power to command the army. Right? So what the minister has failed to do is to recognize the very symbol of authority of this nation, and for that to hold the FC minister responsible. And going forward, beyond what listening to the general, I've heard retired General Burtai speak on this matter, talking about disrespect to the commander-in-chief, that he should render apology to the commander-in-chief, to the armed forces, and to the young officer. I listened to retired General Lucky Rabo speak on this issue. He is equally of the same opinion. And then I listened to the Minister of Defense, and all of them, everybody is in unison that the FCT minister erred in this matter. It doesn't matter the issue of the land. The question here is what we watched. And when you have seen this soldier well dressed, then call attention of the headquarters. Call the Minister of Defense to order. If they are an illegality, I will tell you that they could get to the root of it and they will be punished. But respect the symbol of authority. Respect the symbol of this nation. It belongs like when you are passing and you hear the national anthem, you are required to pause until they are done singing the national anthem as a respect to our motherland. Right? This minister should know. And then when I saw him grant a press conference, for instance, I was thinking that the minister would have, honorably rendered an apology to Nigerians and to the commander of the armed forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to say that he has erred, but he is sorry. Rather than coming to lecture us that the said retired officer is not the one who, or the original owner of the land, that the land is owned by a company called, is it Santos or Santos? I don't know. And I, for one, really do not care, because the issue at stake here is no longer how this parcel of land is acquired, either illegally or legitimately. No. The point in focus here is that the minister desecrated the symbol, or a symbol of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and as a city minister, he should know better. That is awful, and we should speak vehemently against that. It doesn't matter that he is the FCT minister from the South, because a lot of people have tried to polarize this issue and want to, begin to speak from the point of the North and the South of certain individual being against the minister. No, nobody has been against the minister. Nobody told the minister to, insult the young officer. I, for one, I still wait for the minister to do the honorable thing and apologize to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and to Nigerians, and then to the young officer. I can tell you, I interact a lot with our soldiers, and I've seen a lot of them. You know what they've been posting all along? I am an officer, I have integrity.
Well, they're not the only ones posting.
Okay. But I'm telling you that what I'm trying to bring out here is that the sentiment is, is general. They are all in unison in supporting their own. The military is a very strong constituency on its own, and they are all in support of this young officer. They are very proud of this officer. All of them I have spoken to, both the Army, both the Air Force, and some of them in the Navy. They are all in support. I saw their DP turn their DP to Yerima. Overwhelming support. overwhelming support, and that should say something to the minister that it's time to toe the moral high ground. Just render an apology, close the issue, then let the probe that the federal government have instituted, go on and then investigate if and how this retired naval officer acquired this plot of land, and then let the right thing be done. Yes.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'll be moving over to our paper for today, being Saturday, starting from the Nation headline that says Fubara orders boycotts as PDP faction holds convention. And in the Punch headline that says convention, 4 PDP governors storm Ibadan as INEC signals boycotts. And Vanguard headline says economy experts disagree with FG on performance. And the Guardian headline reads complex deals that frustrate opposition parties' revival.
All right. The PDP are still dominating the headline, and then this convention, speaking about Fubara, for example, and then the headline in the Punch and the Guardian, I think they all should be lumped into one. And we've spoken about this issue and spoken about it vehemently, that the PDP is unable to put their house in order. Yesterday while I was speaking, I said, in as much as the elder statesman, Chief Bode George, who doesn't want to hear the fact that PDP is factionalized, but the sincerity, and like every person can see, even the blind are beginning to see it, that the PDP is factionalized. The deaf can hear it now, that PDP is factionalized. And today, what is happening as we speak, the factionalized convention of the PDP is going on. Yes, I keep saying the factionalized convention because until a superior court comes to rule whatever that is happening in Oyo State as we speak as illegitimate, then it's still a factionalized PDP holding a convention. Because as we speak, there are 2 groups of the PDP. Talk about the Wike Sam Anyanwu-led faction and the Damagun backed by PDP governors-led faction. And then the Damagun-led faction are the ones holding convention in Oyo State. While we speak to these issues, over a long period of time, we'll be talking about this crisis and the factionalization, and PDP has shied away from the fact that they didn't want to call a spade, but now it is quite obvious, like I did say, that the blind are able to see the division in PDP. Remember that the PDP suspended the national secretary of their party, talk about Sam Anyanwu, and their legal advisor, and then they allied with former governor of Rivers State, the FCT minister Wike, then suspending the other factions, the Damagun, and then having their own chairman. And what would that give you? That's factionalization. And then leading to this slated convention of today. What do we have? They've gone to court, and we've seen counter judgments, counter court orders on the convention happening or not. Even as yesterday, there was a ruling for the former governor of Jigawa State, Senator Lamido, who the court has said that convention should not hold because the convention, stands to contravene his rights, that until he is able to pick the form and participate in that convention convention should not hold. But surprisingly, we equally got a counter judgment from Oyo State telling the factionalized PDP led by Damagun to go ahead with this convention. Very worrisome that PDP at this point, we are still speaking to the crisis in PDP. Why the Wike-led faction, I keep on insisting, based on the court order of Honorable Justice James Omotosho, that said that PDP should revert to the party constitution, see to it that they meet the party constitutional requirements, that INEC should not honor the convention, but the Damagun-led faction, like we keep saying, has head on to the Supreme Court judgment telling that the internal affairs of every party should be reconciled by the party and not subject to litigation. And then today, this convention is happening. And what are we witnessing? Like we've seen in the Punch and in the Nation newspaper, that some governors are attending this convention. But let me speak to Fubara. I, for one, I do not expect to see Governor of Rivers State, Simi Fubara, in that very convention. Everybody knows that he's aligned to the FCT Minister Wike, that given the challenges and everything that he has gone through, one doesn't expect him to go against the FCT Minister, not so soon. So wasn't him not being there is expected. So it shouldn't have made news because nobody will be surprised by the fact that Fubara is not at that convention. Having said that, then who are those who are participating in this convention? And I can begin to tell you as that when I was looking yesterday, I was seeing a lot of high-profile individuals in this very convention. And as we speak, I am made to be aware that about 4 governors of the PDP are in attendance to this conversation and this convention, talking about the governor of Bauchi, the governor Bala Mohammed, who is in attendance, and then to Zamfara, Governor Dauda Lawal is equally in attendance, and then the governor of Adamawa State, talk about Governor Fintri, right? And then the host governor himself, Sheyi Makinde. These are the 4 governors there, with the exclusion of the governor of Taraba State, Abu Kefas, right? You do not expect Abu Kefas there, like Fubara, to be in attendance also, because as we speak, you know, the general notion is that Governor Kefas of Taraba is already on his way, very close to the APC gate. Yeah. He's just waiting to unlock the gates and then step in. So one wouldn't expect him at this very convention. Having said all that, you know, we do not know what will be the outcome of this convention. If this convention will toe the line or the advice of former Senate President Bukola Saraki when he told the PDP that they should not go ahead with that convention, rather they should appoint a caretaker committee, you know, to see to this settling of the various factions in the PDP, that after the reconciliation, then they can go into, you know, a combined convention. I bet that the other faction came to tell us that no, there's no need. There's only this convention that can determine if they are going to have a caretaker committee, that will be determined at this convention. And then it's worthy to point out that this convention is meant to be an elective convention of the PDP that will bring in a new chairman and other elective positions of the party. And like I did mention, I know that at the end of the day, it will be subject to litigation. I don't know if Aneke will be represented in this convention or not, but this crisis will continue to skyrocket. I don't see these issues, I don't see these factions being reconciled as of today, but we'll continue as wonderful spectators to see how it pans out. The part of the faction that becomes, you know, superior to the other by, you know, winning their arguments before the court of competent jurisdiction, and then the one Aneke will reconcile. But if one is to speak to facts and what we are witnessing at this point in time, I do not see the PDP becoming that formidable come 2027, because I think that everything is geared towards decimating PDP from being a viable opposition, which is more worrisome for people like me, that I keep on talking about PDP disappointing the generality of Nigerians by not giving us a viable opposition. One expected that a PDP that has been in government since 1999, over years, if they found themselves in opposition, who have given us a very varied opposition, more than what the APC brought to the table. Yes, but then their inability to do that has left this nation, you know, plundering Asoda at the dictates of the APC. There's no one there who is to confront the APC. You know, one thing with politicians is that they know how to check each other. In as much as civil liberty organizations, the media and everything, I can tell you that it will take a politician to check a politician. And in this instance, the PDP and other opposition parties have deprived us of that opposition. We do not have representative opposition. And with that, APC can get away with blue murder. You know, I keep speaking to one-party state. Why people tell me that Nigeria is so complex that we may not have a one-party state? But what are we witnessing in Nigeria? A nation where there's no opposition, what happens? Is this a PDP that will charge into 2027? What are they going to dare to do? As of today, I do not see a PDP. What I'm seeing is a factionalized house. That's like we had in 2015, what we call the new PDP, led by the then Senate President, when they joined forces with other parties to bring about what we know today as the APC. For one, I think if the PDP, for one, lack that courage to bring themselves together, look at each other in the face and speak truth to each other, then it's time they begin to go to the likes of the Labour Party, which themselves is nowhere to be found. It's looking like Julius Abure is still holding the Labour Party to ransom. And then the only other party that every Nigerian hoped to come to the rescue, I don't know what they are singing at this point in time. If what they are singing is reggae or or blues. No, nobody is even hearing their tone talk about the ADC. But this PDP, the way they are going, those of them who are quite interested in moving forward politically come 2027, I think it's high time they're beginning to, go into some sort of coalition with the likes of ADC, why they remain in the PDP to hold Wike to ransom. But I think the grand plan here, if one can go by what Wike has said in the past, that he would see to it that nobody in the PDP is able to challenge the sitting president of the APC. Having said that, when you have someone who has a vested interest working for the opposition in your party and you do not have the courage to suspend him from your party, what do you expect?
Chaos.
And that is what we are witnessing. We are witnessing the chaos. And I can tell you that this chaos will continue to unravel. We've not heard the list of it. PDP may remain in litigation come 2027. And I do not see them as a force to reckon with. And which is why I don't know what will be the fate of those who will emerge from this very convention, because I know that the wicked that we've seen, the wicked that confronted the young officer Irima, I do not see him giving up. Last night, I watched him and listened to him, when he was being interviewed, challenging Chief Bode George. And so I do not see him, listening to him from the way he spoke, I do not see him giving up the issue of litigating this matter to the end. And when one crisis is being litigated upon, be sure to see another. Now talk about the Sule Lamido action against the party. And now that that convention has gone on to hold, what do you think will happen? Then somebody will take the matter up to appeal. So I do not see this crisis abating, and I do not see a formidable PDP coming up. I stand to be corrected, but PDP may not be a factor come 2027. In as much as, yes, the party faithful will not love what I'm saying, but that's the truth. They failed to put their house in order. And what do you have when you build on sand? What will you see? The house will collapse, and that's what is happening. Since the PDP lost the election, they refused to dig deep. They allowed crack in the building, and what I tell you that it has gotten to a point where is either you begin to reconstruct or you have a collapse, and PDP is close to that collapse because reconciling these factors, I'm still waiting for that judicial interpretation. And like I do mention, I don't know where INEC stands in all this. Even the party headquarters, nobody knows who is totally in control of their party headquarters. As and when forms were being sold, you remember that we were told that the forms were being sold from the Legacy House instead of the Wadata Plaza. So at the end of the day, it's so worrisome. It's so worrisome that the PDP has disappointed a lot of Nigerians that hoped on them to give them opposition. No, nothing is coming out from this PDP as far as I'm concerned. And we keep watching what will become of this convention. But I would celebrate with everybody if PDP is able to put their house in order and give us a viable opposition, which I do not see. I do not see a PDP that will challenge APC come 2027. It's not going to happen with this leg. In this area of the world, aga signal here, and what does that mean? Is this how the cow is going to trek to Umahia? No, the journey is quite far, and the pace is not matching it. So this party, is tilting towards becoming a comatose party. We are beginning to hear echoes of the past. When we begin to remember the PDP of old, and they are living. Yes, it's that glory that is thrusting them up. That's why they are making headline. As at yesterday night, I can tell you that the weekend-led fashion are still running adverts, letting people know that the convention has been cancelled, that it will not hold. Yes, but I bet that as at the last count, I took notice that 24 states out of the 36 states and FCT has already reported, and there are myriads of flyers of various interested parties and candidates in the convention. So why do I mention this? That will tell you that this other faction is not giving up, and I do not see a reconciliation happening today or tomorrow. Having listened to Chief Bode George and Aneke is quite worrisome and quite unfortunate. And like I always do, I keep speaking to patriotic Nigerians, elder statesmen, that it's time to salvage this sinking ship before it sinks other. Yeah, because there will be no rescue mission. It has become a Titanic, and like what happened in Titanic, what do you see? I think there was no survivor from
Yeah,
that.
there
So
was
it's
not.
going to be very, very, very detrimental to the politics of this nation. And I do not, even if I'm to speak for the ruling APC, I don't think they should be very happy with what is happening. Yes, and that makes me to remember, that saying when Adolf Hitler was holding sway, there was this write-up I heard about that when they cared for everybody, he didn't speak up. Then when it was time for him, there was nobody to speak up for him because he kept quiet and everybody was, there to it. And then there's nobody to speak up for him. And now those of them in the APC who have found themselves in the APC and they are celebrating that, they know, let them know that there is a tomorrow.
Yeah.
So instead of this rancorous politics we are playing, where we are having a sole, very strong party without opposition, is not good, is not a good democratic representation for this nation. This country has thrived in having a virile opposition. I bear the fact that we've had dominant parties in the past, but there's need for opposition in this country. At least for the sake of the good citizens of Nigeria, whose voice can only be heard through a proper representation as imbued in opposition political parties that will challenge the actions of a ruling party. And for me, it's quite worrisome, quite disturbing that this is happening with the PDP and Labour. Nobody speaks about them again. Nobody speaks up. Nobody's talking about ADC. It becomes quite worrisome, And the fact that Fubara did not make the convention should not surprise anybody. Kefas not being there shouldn't surprise anybody. Kefas, like the governor of Enugu State and Bayelsa, is equally trying to negotiate his way into APC. The Fubara we're talking about, we already know has one foot in APC because because his ally Aneke is already in APC. So anytime he wakes up, he could go to bed holding one pillow and waking up holding a different pillow belonging to APC. So one should expect him in this convention. And the higher thing I expected, like the former Senate President Saraki did advise, is that PDP should have had a unified front, have a caretaker committee that will reconcile the various wearing fashions. But one thing has to be pointed out. Does Wike want to be reconciled? That should be the truth that we should ask ourselves. Does he really want to be reconciled with anybody? Would Wike be serving in an APC government that he's very proud of, and he has spoken of his loyalty to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then start to challenge the same president in an election? That's not going to happen, and that's the truth. That's courage that PDP has lacked to tell themselves the truth. And the earlier they confront it, the better for them.
All right, thank you very much for that. And that is all for this week in retrospect on Aneke TV. And please do not forget to send us your views with hashtag retrospect on Aneke TV. You can send us on Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, all at Aneke TV, or call our phone number 0703-043-7110.
And thank you for joining us on the Weekend Retrospect. I'm still your host, Uche Osai.
And I'm Deborah Wakaba. To have a lovely weekend.
Ibai. Ekele mu. Ojo kwani eje gondo. Ndo ana atoka. Onya ana nke nya no na agwo. Ibai adino. Ogologo ndo. Aruke. Ọdụmma ihe eji ene ndụ anya. Na onye nwere ihe eji ene ndụ anya. N'elufuta nwere ya. Ịmara na nsogbu riri. Ya Olise bụ anyị na-ekene gị. Chukwu okike. onye ogologo ndụ na ogologo anya na-ahụ ndụ na ọchịchị anyị na-ekene na-ekele maka tata na-ayọ maka echi maka na ọsọ maka eme echi anyị mara na ya dịka echi na echi anaghị agwụ agwụgwụ na ihe ya adịla anyị mma ọ ya dịla onye ọbụla mma ịdịkwazị ọgbaghị nọ ya ahịa anọdụ n'ala Igbo eke oyi nkwọ awụ ndị be anya onwekwara ihe ọzọ na anyị enye ndị ichie jupụtara anyị na-enwe
na be anyị amechi na ọ bụ ọkụ na anọ anyị adawo aga ọjị a na-awa ha abịa ji na ọjị n'aka ịkya na a na-agụ ya a na-eji ọjị n'aka nri ana m erachi ihe kere ihe na ihe wara ihe Chineke nna kere enu ke ana m akpọku ndị ezigbo mmadụ niile nọchawọrọ ndụ na amechi ọkụ na anọ na anụ ọkụ na anọ na anụ Nkanụ na anụ Nta Egbe na-ese na anụ Enugu steeti na-asị biko na ọ bụ ha metere ihe ọma ka anyị na-asị ha gbadata ha bịa tara ọjị anyị na-asị eke ka eke ketere anyị ihe ọma anyị na-asị ahwọ ka ahwọ ghọtara anyị ihe ọma anyị na-asị nkwọ ka nkwọ kwọtara anyị ihe ọma anyị na-asị orie ka orie rutere anyị ihe ọma ihe ndị a niile ka anyị na-arịọ nna sị ka ị bịa mere anyị wetere anyị udo n'ala Igbo wetere anyị udo n'ala Naịjirịa wetere anyị ịhụnanya wetere anyị ọganihu wetere anyị ihe niile bụ ihe na-eme obodo adịmma nna biko ihe ndị a ka anyị na-arịọ kwetewo na imeworo anyị karịa ka anyị rịọrọ n'ịhwa Chineke nna kere enu ka ana bụ Chukwu okike abịama
ndị be anyị ọjị abịa anyị na-ekene osebụrụ ụwa ekene Chukwu okike nna ketara anyị oge kere igwe ka anyị na-ata ọjị anyị chọrọ iwe ọjị ị na-awa n'otu awa n'ibe asị ka ị goziela anyị taa ka ihe ọma hụkwa gwute anyị na-akpọku ndị nna nna anyị ha bụ abụ ndị mere ọhụma goziela anyị eke gozie ori gozie nkwọ mee ka ndị ọbụla na-agagharị na-achọghị ha ga-eri mee ọhụma na ndị sokwa ụzọ ọtọ ndị kwụkwara ụzọ na-eje n'ụzọ kwụrụ ọtọ soro ka iwu Chukwu ji wee dị Chukwu na anyị siri ka anyị wụọ gị a tata nde udo na ọgụ na aga m niile ka ọ dịrị anyị mma ndewo anyị na-ewepụta ile ọjị na-egosi ụmụnna anyị okenye na-awa ọjị ndị ọzọ na-awa ọjị na-ele enye ile ọjị nsọfụrụ maka na ebe a ọ na ile ọjị a ka eji ama eziokwu iweta ọjị kpọrọ ya ọzọ na-asa ile ọ ga-eji na-ekwu eziokwu onye sara ile weta ile ọjị were na-ekpe ekpere were na-aga ọhọ ọ ga-ekwuneta eziokwu ọjị a anyị na-enye nsọfụrụ ọjị lụọ ịnọ otu a ata ya o ruo ise atakwa ya mana o bido ruo na asaa ịma na ị ga-egbu anụ ị ga-egbu ọkụkọ